Hey YouTube, today we're making hamburger relish. And for those who may not know what hamburger relish is, it is a lot like hot dog relish. It's just a difference of the base that's used to make the relish. So for hot dog relish, you need mustard as your base, and for hamburger relish, you need ketchup or some sort of tomato base to make your relish. It tastes so good on hamburgers, and you can use it in other ways too. So I'm just going to turn the camera around and show you how it's made. For this recipe, you're going to need 6 to 8 extra large cucumbers, 3 tablespoons of salt, 2 cups of vinegar, 3 cups of sugar. You can use sweetener as well, like a xylitol or something like that. You may even be able to get away with honey. I'm pretty sure that would probably work, but I haven't tried it. 1 teaspoon of ground turmeric, and 1 whole can of tomato paste. Cucumbers are the main ingredient here for hamburger relish. You can use a variety of vegetables to go with the cucumbers to make the relish. I'll be using onions and some green tomatoes I had kicking around in my garden. You can easily use fresh red tomatoes. You can use yellow peppers, red peppers, green peppers. You can use celery even. I've seen quite a few varieties of what people use in their hamburger relish. I'm keeping it pretty basic, so mine is just going to have these 3 ingredients. What's the most important is the ratios when you're making a type of relish is going to be the vegetables to vinegar ratio. I'll get into those details in a minute. Right now I'm just going to chop up my cucumbers and my onions and tomatoes, and I'll come back and show you what. I just wanted to show, if you end up with cucumbers like mine that are seedy, what I did is I cut out the centers and just discarded them because that's not going to taste very good in a relish, all those seeds. And then I will cut them into halves like this, because eventually we're going to be using the blender in order to chop up everything into finer bits. So I'll come back when I'm done cutting up all of these cucumbers and when I'm done chopping up the onions and the tomatoes. So now you can see here I've chopped up the green tomatoes and the onions, and the cucumbers are in larger chunks here, chopped up in the bowl. I'm going to go ahead and add 2 tablespoons of salt across here, and I'm going to let it sit for, so the 2 hours is important to let it sit. I'm going to go ahead and toss this up by hand. I'm going to go ahead and let the salt marinate the cucumbers and the tomatoes and onions. And after 2 hours, I'll come back and drain the liquid that's been drawn out of these veggies from the salt, and I'll show you what we're going to do next. So it's been a lot more than 2 hours, but 2 hours is all you really need. I've actually been busy, so this was in the fridge for 2 days. I'm going to go ahead and drain it. You can see some of that liquid that's drained off from the salt being added. I'm going to go drain that off. I give it a quick rinse, and then I'm going to put it in the blender, and I'll show you what that looks like. So I've got it all pretty much drained, rinsed, and drained again. You can see here the pieces are pretty big, and in a Vitamix there's a little port at the top where I can push a tamper down into it, so it's going to be chopped up pretty quickly, but you could do this just as easily in a blender. It's just going to take a little bit more time. You can set it to the chop setting on a blender and just take your time, take the lid off, push down the bits that go up, and I'll show you what texture that you want it to look like. And it's going to be put on low setting on a Vitamix so that it can pretty much chop up the cucumber. Get my tamper out. Well, you can see here that it's all pretty much ground up all the way through. So now I'm going to go ahead and put this on the pot, and I'm going to count out the cups just to show you the measurement or the ratio of this mix. So the ratio that we're looking for here is 6 cups of your vegetable mix, which is going to be mostly cucumbers, but you can include your peppers, your tomatoes, whatever all else that you do end up putting in here. But for me, I'm looking to have about 6 cups of the ground up cucumber, onion, and green tomatoes. And that will be the ratio, 6 cups of veggie to 2 cups of vinegar. And we will go from there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So this time I have exactly 6 cups. And it's not a big deal if you end up with 7 or 5.5 or something like that. It's not going to really mess the recipe up too much, but you just want to aim for 6 cups of vegetables to the 2 cups of vinegar. So I'm going to go ahead and add that vinegar right now to the vegetables cooking up here. So 1, 2, and I'm going to let that simmer for about 10 minutes. In about 2 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and add some sugar to this. In this part here, I'm just adding the sweetener. I have added 3 cups of sweetener to my recipe here, and the recipe originally called for 6, but that's actually way too sweet. But 3 cups of sugar to 6 cups of vegetables and 2 cups of vinegar might sound like a lot, but just to keep in mind that hamburger relish, you really only use a couple tablespoons at a time. So the sugar is fine, I think, with 3 cups of sugar. But anything less than that, and it's going to be much more acidic tasting because of the vinegar. So you can always go by taste, but what I did here was add 3 cups of sugar to the relish. So I have my relish here with the vinegar and the sugar added, and to that I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of turmeric. And I've got here my tomato paste, and it's organic. So to the rest of the mix, I added that entire can of tomato paste. Okay, and this is what it looks like. And to this, I'm going to add my final ingredient, which is 2 tablespoons of rice starch. You can use cornstarch, you can use tapioca starch. I'm going to add it to about 1/3 cup of cold water. And the reason that I do that is to mix that cornstarch in without it being lumpy. It's best to have the water mixture first and then pour it into whatever it is that you're cooking. I usually just mix it up with a fork. It makes it easier to avoid any lumps getting left behind in there. And it's pretty much mixed in. All right, so it's mixed in. I'm going to go ahead and pour. And I will just go ahead and stir that in. And this relish is going to simmer on your stove for 10 minutes at least. I've had this probably simmering for about 10 or 15 minutes actually, but it's fine. 10, 15 minutes, however. So you can kind of start to see that it's a little bit chunky and the liquid itself is starting to become a little bit thick. And I just kind of like that. And once it's fully chilled in the fridge, because you usually serve this cold out of the fridge, and once it's fully chilled, it will be a little bit thicker and it's going to be a nice consistency, I think, for relish. So this has been simmering for at least 10 minutes, probably 15. I'm going to go ahead and add this hot mixture to my hot sterilized jars. And the way that I sterilize my jars is I wash them in hot soapy water and I just pop them into my oven for 10 minutes at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And for my lids, I add boiling kettle water to them for 10 or 15 minutes, and that's how I sterilize mine. So I'm going to go ahead and add this mixture into the jars. So my jars are ready to go here. I've added the relish, I've debubbled, and I've also wiped the rims clean and also checked for cracks. These are brand new jars, but you never know. While you're wiping down the jars, you can always feel for any indentations in the jars because that could affect your sealing on your cans. So I'm just going to go ahead and put the lids on and I'll show you what that looks like. So these jars have been tightened, finger tight, so they're not like extra tight, just gently tightened to make sure that it's closed properly. And because this is hot jars, it's going to be put into hot water in the Waterbath canner. So I'm going to go ahead and put these in. So once this gets to a rolling boil, I will set my timer. So we're at a full rolling boil, so I've set my timer for 10 minutes. Just make sure that it's boiling fully like this. And I'm going to come back when it's done, 10 minutes. Okay, so here it is. hamburger relish ready to go and sealed completely. I'm just going to let these finish cooling on the counter here. This ended up making 3 pint jars, which that's each pint jar is 2 cups. So 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 cups of hamburger relish. I find the small half pint jars, which is about 1 cup, is nice to give away for gifts and for smaller portions as well, depending on how much you go through of this. But it's also nice for gifts because you can give out quite a few with a little bit less of what you made. So that's it. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them down in the comment section. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.